It's the C Note Show. This is your daily playbook for more hugs, kisses, sex, and affection with professional coaches, myself, Jeff Allen, and Miss Cynthia Cruz.
I can't think of a better place or a way I'd rather start my week. So thank you for having me.
Today, our theme of this week is more hugs, kisses, sex, and affection. And what does connection look like and what does it not look like? We want more passion and connection and intimacy and growth together, but we're not trying to learn these dark, you see shit out there like learn the dark secrets to get more blah, blah bullshit. And that's not what we're about here. So we're doing this because it's for ourselves, for the man that we want to be. And of course, it'll increase the intimacy in our relationship. And yes, all of us, I think, want more affection, more honest affection in our lives. We want more affection. She wants connected, healthy affection. And so we're doing these things. We're going to talk about what we're doing for the information that we get as men, meaning you're not trying to get something particular from any one interaction. If I'm walking past Cynthia, Cynthia's my fiance, for those of you that don't know. For walking past Cynthia in the morning and I brush the lower part of her back, I'm doing that because I'm showing affection, not because I'm trying to win brownie points. And if you're in a point in your relationship where things aren't going well, you're trying that because you want to see how it goes. You want to be that man that leads within a relationship. You're not trying to get it so you can cross your fingers and hopefully get sex later. And we're doing these things for our own awareness within the relationship, and to know the triggers within our own body of what exactly is happening. Okay? So there's 3 different things that we're going to talk about. So we've got fight, flight, or Fonzie. And something I love that Steve Horseman has said, and I don't know if he coined the phrase, but what's easy versus what's effective? Cynthia and I were talking about how we hear from so many men, well, this is hard. I would love for it to be easy, right? How do I just flow in life and make it easy? And we want our actions to be effective and connecting and not just easy. That's not the benchmark, right? So Cynthia, please jump on and what does easy versus effective in this context mean to you to start us off here?
Well, first, no one wants to think, oh gosh, this is going to be hard and a lot of work, because otherwise, then why would we invest so much energy into it? I think the key is when things work well, when we have tools and practices that are effective and are moving the ball forward, it takes intention and it takes thought and purpose. The effectiveness brings a certain ease and it becomes a natural part of our day. So I think, the work involved is just about having kind of an intention and a vision and a purpose in the actions that we're taking.
Oh, I love that intention, vision, and purpose. One of my goals in the first 10 minutes of every show is to show about a 2-minute clip from a 1980s movie. And this week, it's going to be Vacation. We've got Christmas Vacation, we've got European Vacation mixed in, and the original Vacation. And this one is from Christmas Vacation. It's one of my favorite scenes with Chevy Chase.
Can I show you something?
I was just smiling. I was just browsing.
For your wife or your girlfriend?
What? What happened? Woof. I guess wouldn't be any. Wouldn't be the Christmas shopping season if the stores were any less hotter than they are. Whew, it is warm in here.
Well, you have your coat on.
Yes. Oh, do I? How did that happen?
Because it's cold out?
Yes. It is. It's a bit nipply out. I mean nippy out. What did I say? Nipple? There is a nip in the air, though.
Can I take something out for you?
I was just looking at something for my wife. God rest her soul.
Oh, God, I'm so sorry.
Oh, no. She's not dead. Yeah, we're just divorced. She's history. And obviously she doesn't wear underwear. And there are plenty of shopping days left until adulthood, which is to say Christmas as in Yule. fuel log. Not a log. I don't have a log, but I mean, just, if I had a log, not in the sense that you think I said I did. Oh, good golly. 'Tis the season to be merry.
Well, that's my name.
Oh, shit.
Oh my goodness. Chevy Chase, gotta love him. So I'm wondering what's effective. For some reason I pictured Roger playing that role right then. I don't know why that is. Right? It's a bit nipple. Did I say nipply? Nipple? It's a bit nipple outside. And so what's easy versus what's effective, and why are we doing this, right? We don't want to come across stumbling all over ourselves when we're trying to escalate and get more hugs, kisses, and affection with our wife. That may be funny, but he's lucky that she's in a shopping mall and has to stand there and talk with him, because otherwise she probably would have walked away a long time ago with the way he was acting. Cynthia, aside from Chevy Chase being hilarious and famous and all those other things, have you had a man? Let me ask you. I didn't prep for this. I didn't have my publicist prep this either. Have you had a man come up to you and stumble all over himself like that? And I'm curious, how would that be for you? How would that feel for you if he was this overly trying hard, really unsure about himself, completely out of place like that? How does that come across for you?
So I'm pausing because there was one experience I remember actually being in bed with a man. So I was like thinking, like, is that the right example? Um,
Yeah, that would probably be a good example. Everyone's like, yes. Say that one.
well, this was actually it wasn't that kind of like stumbling over saying all the like wrong things where you kind of cringe and you feel like that person's lack of intention or purpose. It feels a little, it feels like the energy feels gloppy. It feels like they're kind of like putting paint on you because can't quite tell what the true intent of their attention is. My example of dating someone, and I was actually dating a few people at the time, and I felt really comfortable with this man, to sleep with him, and went to his. They have a really beautiful cabin up in the mountains, and I certainly felt very ready, and it didn't have to be a deeply, like, we didn't have to be in a perfect relationship. And he actually got really shut down because he was so nervous, and touched me and everything like that, but then um we didn't end up sleeping together, and he didn't at the time, couldn't really verbalize that. And um later we talked about it, but I was totally okay with it. It was just confusing to not know his experience or not have him communicate with me, and I had that kind of like vulnerability hangover the next day because it was a vulnerable situation, and there's always a little bit like, did I do something wrong? So it's kind of feeling the other person's nervousness and fear and maybe lack of intent. And so it didn't feel wonderful the next day. It was a little bit of that gloppy energy too.
So what could he have done, or what could have a man done in this scenario? And I'll come back to our notes here. The fight, flight, and Fonzie. What could he have done that was either nonverbal, like you said, a woman wants to be seen, heard, and felt and understood. And from a man's point of view, some steps up the staircase of intimacy are nonverbal, basically looking at her, connecting with her, having thoughts in your mind, and envisioning positive things with her or for yourself. Verbal is actually speaking with her, of course. And then there's physical. So, what would have been some things that man could have done that were to start moving more up the stairs of intimacy without maybe the pressure of sex? We don't need the pressure of step 10, penis and vagina. Let's go step 1, 2, 3 of nonverbal, like what you hold in your mind, what you hold in your mindset, and how you look at her. Verbal, and some beginning steps of physical intimacy. What would have been a good idea for him to have done, or any man that's on our call, to start walking and dancing up those staircase of intimacy?
Well, I have to admit, I mean, I appreciated this person. I thought he was a decent, good man, and obviously I trusted him to be physical with him. He was really good with the like verbal, um, verbal affirmation and talking and engaging in conversation. Um, and we didn't really have that first step of intimacy, of that nonverbal of him, of us like looking at each other and him seeing me and kind of having a vision for our time together, our relationship together. And because of that, because it jumped right to like step two, where it was a lot about, oh, I'll tell you all the things, Cynthia, that make you feel good, and that's the way I'm going to like get in with you. Um, because we were kind of missing some of those first two steps, I knew always in the depth of my soul that I did not want to go and be in a relationship with this person. And he requested that, and it just there wasn't the connection there for me. There wasn't the depth there for me to want to, jump into um, a life with him. So.
I want to unpack that a bit. So, what did he request of you? Requested to be in a relationship?
Yes, yeah, and
Okay.
it felt kind of like startling, like because it seemed out of nowhere, and I kind of felt like the steps before that
Mm.
weren't built, so it took me off guard, and it was kind of surprising.
Yeah. So so a man, I'm thinking of the men that we work with one on one and the men in the forum and on this call that are wanting to rebuild something or start something fresh, right? Version 2 of the relationship or version 2.0 of themselves as a man. And most men, including myself, that are on here are more romantic. We're not just to beat your chest, watch the game, and that's all we care about. We want more depth. We want more intimacy and growth with a woman. So how would we bring this up? This is a complicated question, right? So this is something men ask me. Uh, how do I grow the relationship then if I don't talk about the relationship? So what am I supposed to do then if I don't talk about the relationship? And I'll share the screen again. She wants to be seen, heard, and felt and understood. Nonverbal, verbal, and physical. So if I can't talk about the relationship, well, what am I supposed to do to grow connection? What is connection?
And I'm sorry, you're asking me.
Yeah, you're laughing at Roger or something.
Yes.
So Roger said, Roger said, on a serious note here, sexually, I'm a bit scared of my wife, quote unquote, scared. Never really been that way before. Just her. I don't know why. Maybe I love her too much and step on my own, step on my own. Dugan, is that Dugan? Duggan? Is that your? Did you name your penis, Roger? He's on a call. Look at this. He can't talk now. So he's a bit scared of her, and he's not sure why. And Dennis says it's because you're outcome dependent. He feels like he wants something in particular. So for those of us again that want to grow relationship with our spouse, maybe we're estranged at the moment, or it's not going very well, or we're separated and in the same house at this moment, or trying to reconcile. How do I connect with her if I don't talk about the relationship, Cynthia? What is connection then if I'm not actually saying, "Hey, let's get back together," and I'd like to request a relationship with you.
Well, connection it really is three parts. It's the nonverbal, and it's the verbal, and then it's the physical. And we already kind of talked about how we connect on a nonverbal level of um, there is nothing that can shift my energy quicker than when you see me, Jeff. And even this morning I was a little like nervous in my head, and kind of doing that thing, and you just looked over at me and paused and really noticed what was new and different, and made a comment about my dress. And I felt like in that moment, like all this stress drained from me, because I was being seen, and that I don't think that's a I think there's a real reason for that. You know, if we think back to caveman and cavewoman days, like our survival depended on the other people in our tribe noticing us, seeing us, making sure that we were okay and in the line and in the protection of the cave. And so that's what it feels like in my body. Um, when someone, a man, a woman, a friend really is willing to just take me in and notice what's new in me that day. So that's one piece. Did you want me to then kind of talk about the the next like verbal piece?
Well, I want to start with that. So the noticing something different about you, the seeing within my mindset, within my envision of our relationship. And so that's something that I talk with extensively about men is if you think that your spouse or soon to be ex or co-parent is this horrible demon lizard thing and you're like, cursing her in your head, even if things are going okay right now, if you're cursing her in your head, it's not going to go well. I'll be vulnerable and tell a quick story. So when I was with and if you've been watching this show, guys, you know that Cynthia and I got together in our late 30s. We were both in relationships before that. I split up with my ex 5, 6 years ago, separated and divorced, and I have now a 16-year-old son. We were in therapy for about 6 months before we separated, my ex and I. And something that was that brought out was basically brought out in therapy from her was that like she wasn't sure about me, the entire time, and that's how I felt. I just felt like I was the one on trial. And there was a particular day that I was driving to the therapy session just thinking, this is going to be a fucking shit show today. Oh god, I'm not looking forward to our session today. And guess what, I pretty much made sure that it was a shit show that day because that's where my mindset was, and that's how you know, I just kind of came across raw, and I came across in a way that wasn't calibrated and not mature, and I'm definitely embarrassed by that. I've never said that on the broadcast like this, but I've definitely been there, and that was 90% my mindset, not anything that happened in therapy that day. So we can certainly bring about these self-fulfilling prophecies. And so the first thing is where is our presence? Like Jonathan on here said that it's being present in the moment. He said in chat, don't try to connect by talking about the relationship. Be in the moment. Be present, right? And Andrew says engagement from the man. Yeah. And so let me jump back really fast, Cynthia. And I'd love for feedback, guys, on what we're saying. So please raise your hand in Zoom or say you have a question in chat so we can call on you and give us some feedback. I've tried that. Or, hey, Jeff, that sounds like bullshit. I call BS on that. Or, wow, tell me more depth about that, Cynthia. How can I escalate with where we are here? So, yeah. And again, this is to help us put together something that we're going to release for free to men, which is how to escalate up the staircase of intimacy, emotional, physical, spiritual, all together. Right. So step 1, 2, 3 is from the beginning. We don't in where you are in the relationship, whether it's not going well or whether you want it to go better and have more kisses and sex and hug and affection. Okay, that's where we are today. That's what we're talking about today. So this man in this example, Cynthia, he took you up to his cabin and saying all the nice things, saying all the great things, skipped a bunch of steps and tried to ask for relationship. So that wasn't a good idea. You said you felt painted and heavy and really uncertain of where he was going. What do you think it was? Now knowing what you know, right? Fast forward to now, where you and I have been professionals and full-time in this field for a decade in teaching mental health. We've been doing our private practices for 4 years on our own here now. So fast forward to now, what was he missing in that moment? What was he missing that he could have stair-stepped up the stairs of intimacy?
Well, he was missing intent and vision. There was no like it seemed like there was no thought about what relationship actually looks like and a plan that he would have for that or a vision he would have for that in a relationship with me. It was just the goal was to get into a relationship, and then everything would just happen automatically from there. And I mean, I totally get that and understand that. It just didn't feel good, and it wasn't something that pulled me to want to be a um, part of that. And also, I mean, we could have good conversations, and there wasn't the ability to really talk about what was really important to me, what I enjoyed, what I thought about. And when I asked him, deeper questions about his beliefs, ideas, thoughts, it was kind of more, I think, out of nervousness, out of like a surface level, and kind of making a joke or giving another compliment. And so I didn't feel like I got to um, didn't feel very heard, and then in turn, I didn't feel like I really knew who this person was and how they felt and thought, and that's really important, and that's really attractive as well.
Wow. I mean, as a man listening there, he had an outcome, a goal he wanted to get to, basically, and didn't have an ongoing vision, an ongoing journey of vision for relationship or for life, even, it sounds like. And the cascade of feelings within you of being uncertain, not sure what he wants, it's stagnated, feeling heavy and that's an intense mix of emotions and confusion and uncertainty that you had simply because he was ba- had one outcome in mind and really not a vision for his whole life or whole career. Is that fair to say? Is that true?
Yeah, and I've been kind of dancing around how that made me feel. Um, Honestly, all I felt in that was kind of his embarrassment and maybe guilt and shame. And so I just felt that in my body as well, with this lack of focus and drive. And again, like I've, been on the other side of the fence as well, with being unclear and kind of carrying my stuff and not sharing who I am. Um, but when we don't really share authentically who we are with people, and we're holding back or trying to tamper down, I think whatever we're trying to hide, it is felt on some level by the other person.
Mm. Andrew, I'd love for you to jump in. I saw you raised your hand.
Yeah, you've got me thinking now, both of you. First of all, from what you said, Jeff, when you were mentioning about the day that you went for your marriage guidance counselling, and on the way there, I call them movies. One of my friends made up that movie. You make up a movie as what's going to happen in the future. And so, one thing I've learned is that in the future, the movies that we make up in our mind about and I wanted to link that with the word of expectation, is that we then create a movie in our mind and we have an expectation of what's going to happen in the future. And what you were saying there, Jeff, is that you were thinking of what's going to happen. It's going to be shit. And of course, it was shit because you set your mindset up from that. So there's that. But the thing is, I'm wondering with this guy that night that you were with, Cynthia, I'm wondering if this guy had, like, he set up the role play of how he wanted it to be that evening. So he set up how it was going to go, the whole process, the whole evening. And as he was going along, his movie wasn't playing out as he expected it to. He wasn't like living in the present moment. And I just wonder if that, because this has happened to me. I used to many times get nervous when I was with girls, and honestly, I now believe it was because I used to think of how it was going to go, what part we'd get to, and it would never work out because 95% of the time, the things that we think or imagine are going to happen in the future, all our worries, loads of things, they never ever turn out to be true. So what Jeff was saying as well there is to live in the moment and like engage as where you are then. I just wonder if that guy wasn't engaged in you, in where you were, but he was trying to play out the movie that he created in the way that he wanted the evening to go. And it wasn't working for him, so he gets confused and he gets nervous and what he's not doing, not in the moment.
That makes complete sense. That makes complete sense. And I think you even mentioned, you were talking about being present. That presence, like, that we give each other, I mean, that's huge. And a man for me doesn't have to always have he doesn't have to have the perfect plan, and can be going in different ways, but his presence is the attractive force. It's the thing that I feel connected to, and um, is like that redwood tree. And I would say, on the other hand, if I'm not being present around Jeff, he will definitely reflect that back to me. And that's not, if I'm not being present, that's not attractive to him. And it doesn't feel honoring to him as well. So
But the thing is, I've got this intuition that females get this. They notice it in a man. And I'm in a new relationship now, and I feel I've learned a lot. And I think I'm doing well. I feel present. I don't I don't imagine what the evening is going to be. I just go with the flow, how it is. And I don't have any expectations of the evening either. I don't expect anything. I think it's much better. But my question is, do I think females sense it, right?
how can I nod my head big enough? That's I would totally agree with you there. And even if she's not, I'm sure you're with a woman who's very present in how her mind and body works. But even if a woman's not very aware of that, she's going to be picking up on that anyways. And that makes the biggest difference ever. That's, I think, where we get into these confusing places where, you know, you as a man might say one thing, and you're even, monitoring your tone of voice. You're just, hey, I'm just making a request. I need this done. But there's your presence might be a little off, or you're thinking about something different, or there's a certain energy you're holding that's not completely kind of still. And she's going to pick up on your body, even if she doesn't realize it. She's going to react to your body and your presence over what you say, and that's can be so confusing.
Good. Yeah. Thank you, Andy. I appreciate that. Phenomenal question about, wow, can a woman feel more than we realize? And absolutely, can she feel, our presence, our physicality? Absolutely. So, Cynthia, I'm going to segue into the question. And I'd love if you want to give us a bit of feedback in your mind on our 10 on our 10 paragraph email that we don't want to read, but down to his question. So, with all that said, any words of advice or encouragement in maintaining faith and sanity during the trust repairing? For instance, when I do encounter a boundary, I'm left embarrassed and often feel ashamed. In articles and books that I've read on boundaries, one of the main points made is how to lovingly communicate those boundaries. My question is, do I, in some loving way, ask her to communicate those boundaries so I can better understand our relationship? Or should I just keep providing a low pressure, low expectations environment and let the rekindled trust work things out? Should he ask her in some loving way? Do I ask her to communicate those boundaries, which he's conflating his boundaries, her boundaries, and then the relationship, so I can better understand our relationship? Not speaking much about himself here. Or should I just keep providing a low pressure, low expectation environment, help the rekindled trust work themselves out? This is super similar to your story, to be honest. He's not giving much vision here that we can feel. And he's saying, should I ask her what she wants in relationship without putting much of his own foot forward? And so, Cynthia, jump in, please. How would you answer that? What should he do? Basically, ask her more about what she wants in the relationship, or try to have this low pressured, and you can always add to this. It's not the two. It's not should I do A or B. He may not even understand that there's choices C, D, E. There's lots of other things off of his radar right now, right? So please jump in for that.
It's really compelling and attractive when a man speaks to what he wants and desires deeply in relationship. And I think having conversations with your partner about what each person wants is really important, as long as that's a really intentional space. Um, I would say that his job right now is to begin speaking to his desires, his goals and dreams. And, even if it's like 10 years from now, 5 years from now, or even 5 minutes from now, while he is practicing those like first three steps of building intimacy on that whole spectrum of how we can connect. He really wants to get those solid, the the communication solid, the ability to like walk by and touch her hair. Um, and in terms of, her setting a boundary and then him feeling embarrassed by that, um, that reminds me a little bit about what you've said, Jeff, about a man maybe feeling like the woman in his life is like mothering him or saying, "Oh, you're wrong." So I'm curious for your feedback about that.
And so connect those things for me, that if he feels like she's mothering him, that how does that feel for him? How does that go for him?
Well, yeah, the like to feel embarrassed by her setting a boundary. It sounds like she's kind of holding this energy of, you're wrong and you're bad, and so this is why I'm holding this energy, why I'm holding this boundary.
Well, like, so there's you, there's her, and there's the relationship, right, guys? So there's you, there's her, there's the relationship. You're right that and Andy's right that she's going to pick up on your own shame, your personal shame. If you're asking, what is it like when she, as a individual, shames him within the relationship, right? When she's not really speaking with him like a partner, she's speaking about his behavior as a mother in the relationship, like emasculating him. You're not doing well enough. That's definitely something that takes the wind out of our sails. Absolutely. And to answer your question, men want to be revered and honored and look up to and trusted within, and uh, allowed to lead sometimes, allowed to lead within affection and hugs and kisses. And if she doesn't want to go as far as as he, that's fine. But it's shaming him, of course, is not a great idea. Now, in this instance, I feel a lot of self shame within him, as you were saying. So there's a whole soup of shame shit going on. There's a lot of shame shit going on in this gentleman's life, and it feels to me like it's overwhelming him, certainly, which I've been there. It certainly feels like it's overwhelming him. The questions he has are not about what he needs to do for his own self. He's trying to sort of be perfect and offer a low pressure, low expectation environment, and just let things work themselves out. He doesn't have a plan. So this guy's really on his back foot in so many ways. And John in the chat said, he's talking about boundaries are sexy. And there's a book from Alison Armstrong called Queen's Code. And within Queen's Code, she talks about how women inadvertently emasculate a man and turn the prince into the frog. She calls that frog farming. So she may have a man who's capable and is a prince or is moving toward being a prince, but to your point, if she's shaming him, emasculating him, that he's really, he doesn't know which way to go, which way is up. And if he doesn't have a grounded group of mature men, like the men here, guys, or the men on our private forum, or in the other forums that we support. I see Dennis Collins on here, and unless his picture's frozen, he's been saying, "Yeah, he's not frozen. Okay, there he is." I'm gonna have Dennis jump on when he's ready. He helps me. He's a colleague of mine, a coach of mine, professional coach, like Cynthia and I are, and he and I support other men's groups as well. So if this gentleman in the question doesn't have other men that have gone through this, his wind, his sails are loose, and he's just blowing in wherever the storm is blowing him right now. So he's wondering, should I ask the storm what its boundaries are? Should I ask the storm if it's okay that I put my sails up and head toward port and head toward land here? Or should I just let the sails flap and hope everything works out? Okay. Not going to
I'll
go
give you
very
my
well. Dennis,
thought.
yeah, go for it, Dennis.
And Cynthia, you can say I'm wrong at any point if you disagree. And I don't remember where this analogy was. It is men are the boundaries, women are the river, because they are free flowing and they're more emotional and they want and need a little structure. In my conversation with Rebecca yesterday, we talked about, she goes, I don't want 20 choices. She goes, Bring it down to give me A or B, or make the decision, because the men are not going to make a decision that they know she's not going to like. If you use the restaurant example, if she hates a certain type of food and you're picking the restaurant, you're not going to go there. You're going to pick choices that are good for both of you. But when you don't have men in your life, like Jeff said, you're tied to the thermometer, and you're not leading in any way, shape, or form in the relationship. And again, leading is different than being a dictator and stomping around like a little boy saying this is how we're going to do it. It is about lovingly guiding things, is how I see it.
Yeah, thank you, Dennis. And you're very kind to be like, oh, if you disagree, I fully I fully agree with you. And I feel a little like nervous saying that, because if I was on a group right now and it was all women and they were all kind of in their masculine, if I were to say something like that, they would, hang me out to dry. So I very much subscribe to what is like our most authentic energy. And I absolutely feel much more watery than Jeff. I absolutely appreciate the structure that he holds. And sure, can I create my own structure? Yes. And it's exhausting. It's so much more freeing, and it's not draining to me to be in that more watery place. Even with how Jeff leads and structures these sessions, and I have permission just to be in a more watery place, I feel energized and uplifted, and I really appreciate it a lot.
Instead of drained.
Where if I was leading a group again of all women and I'm doing this thing, I'd be pretty wiped out.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Dennis. Yeah. And so many of us have kids, and Cynthia and I have been teachers for a long time, so we had dozens of kids, right? And and I have my own son, of course, and so being a parent is very much structure. Being a mother, most of the time, a lot of the time, aside from, of course, the nurturing and just connection, is there's so much structure and potentially stress and life stress as well, not to mention just the fact of being a mother. And so I'd love for John to come on. John, you said your fourth baby, right? So I'd love if you have a chance to come on and talk about how your wife. Well, first of all, the relationship between you and your wife over the last year or two has been phenomenal. Where we met in a men's group, and it wasn't phenomenal a year or two ago. So if you have a chance, John, or maybe another time if he's working at this moment, and they just had their fourth baby. So her being in motherhood and parenting, especially if the man steps back and abdicates his responsibility, like, okay, sweetie, I'll basically let her make all the parenting rules, and he just kind of be a secondary parent when things go down because she's upset and I'm not sure what to say. If that's easy for you, that's not going to be effective within the relationship, right? It's easy to just stand back, but it's not effective. And it's also easy to let our relationship go on autopilot, but it's not effective. It's not the man that we want to be. So to start becoming effective and that grounded, confident, attractive man that you want to be, to dance up the stairs of intimacy like we've been talking about, you have to believe that you can change the feelings that she has for you compared to the way you've been acting in the past. And you must realize you're becoming a new man. And the way that she's been reacting has been reacting to the old version of you, the old mindsets and beliefs that you had, the old skill sets that you had. And if you're here, my hope is that you're learning these new skill sets. You're reading books that we mentioned. You're watching this show. You're reaching out to us on the forums. You're reaching out to get one-on-one coaching if that's something that you want. If you want to be walked through this as fast as possible to give you your best shot of knowing exactly what it feels like and looks like to have those skills, that's why we do one-on-one coaching. But full circle, this is free. The forums are free. There's so many free resources. We're happy to recommend a $9 Kindle book, and like I've said before, to me, business is about heart and business, and heart and business. The 1, 2, 1, 2, either the 1, 2 punch or your feet as you walk forward. Heart and business. And so a big piece of this for us is heart, because this is free, and we're just giving our heart over here. So let me jump back really fast. You have to believe that you can change the feelings inside of her. You have to have that mindset that you are this new man. And the way she's reacted to you and the way she's reacting to you right now are remnants of the old you. And you must practice dancing up and down the stairs. Okay, you can't sit on the bottom of the stairs and complain like a little boy, and and you're not trying to jump up to level 10 penis and vagina. I love that. Cynthia wrote that for me this morning. Like, yeah, level 10 penis and vagina. I mean, it sounds good, but like Dennis is smiling. Look at that. Dennis, by the way, last week I said there's a level 11, and I'm gonna have Dennis talk about that sometime. So, so let me go ahead and bring you in, Dennis, if you don't mind. So you've had relationship where sex wasn't going well. Then you've had basically just sex with all the women that you wanted when you were dating. And then you've had relationship and with monogamous sex, right? And you've had these different phases. So let me limit you to like 2 minutes. So give me your thoughts on this screen that I just shared right here. You have to believe you can change the feelings that she has for you, for the men on here that are trying to improve things, right? And she's reacting to the old you right now. And even though that's the case, you must practice. You must practice dancing on those stairs.
When there is a connection, I do think it can evolve in such a positive and fun way I think a lot of our limits, especially sexually, are right here. The 6 inches right here. Roger talks about getting nervous and he's scared. Until you can get to that place, and for a woman, the most important thing, especially if you are going into non-normative erotic things, that's a polite way of saying it, it is all about trust and the feeling of safety and security with you, because they are then willing, they want to have fun. So let's not underestimate the women want to have fun. They will be glad to experiment if they have safety and trust, because one of the fears that has been shared with me over the years with a couple of women is I almost feel like embarrassed or shamed to say I want to try this or that, or that I might be judged. And she might be by other women. And so I have found that don't be in a hurry to get up the staircase. Have fun on steps 1, 2, and 3. You could spend an entire evening on steps 1, 2, or 3 and not work. Get off of the focus on orgasm for you and being goal oriented in that way. I believe you should focus more on her pleasure and make sure she feels comfortable and safe, and then you have those conversations with no concern or no fear, and it allows you both to grow and experience and experiment. It's about the best PG version I can come with, and I'm not noticed for being PG.
That was fantastic. I mean, and did you see Cynthia like sitting up and getting all bright? And yeah, I'm sure you did.
I'm in a pretty good zone today. I got to have amazing conversations with a beautiful woman yesterday, and here's how I can tell you if there's a connection. When you can have these deep conversations with women and it's effortless. And in the relationship I ended recently, conversation became like getting a root canal.
That sounds fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was like everything you had to be defensive. And that just tells you right there, things have gone crossways.
Yeah, gone crossways. And that's where I came to this work, right, Dennis? That's where a lot of us came to this work, is when we were crossways. Yeah, and John says, all day foreplay, all caps, baby. So it looks like you got your headphones off. If you can talk, with your 4th baby just here now, and she's, I'm sure, in mommy mode a lot of the time, John, right? Go ahead and jump in. How do you do foreplay, or how have you looked at your relationship, even with kids, young kids right now, and still having more children? How do you look at your relationship right now? How do you do that yourself?
Yeah, give me 1 second. All right, there we go. Much better. So the kids are out there doing homework, so they don't need to be a part of all this. Yeah, but so fourth babies will be here in September. But yeah, I mean, especially with mom being home right now, she's in mommy mode most of the time. So, foreplay, all day foreplay, the lower steps I would say is kind of jumping in and taking the lead and giving her a chance to be just relaxed. As I'd say, probably one of my first steps, and then kissing, touching, is moving it up the ladder. Sex has gone downhill a little bit since she's gotten pregnant. It's not as frequent, but it's still beautiful.
Yeah. Dennis said he's not responsible for the pregnancy. I fucking hope not. And then,
So I got a question for John.
Yes, sir.
Go back 2 years. Think about how you would have reacted if the sex dropped off then to how it is now. Do you even care right now?
No, I mean, not really.
yeah.
I wouldn't have freaked out. I mean, because I think I used that. Well, and also I used her as well as like a barometer for how I was doing as a man. And now I have my own stars. Everything else it's sub at that point. As long as I'm being true to myself and following my own stars, everything else is secondary.
Beautiful. Following your own stars. I love that. I haven't heard you say that, John. That's super cool. That's absolutely. Yeah. So Cynthia, jump in and tell us, how does it feel to be around John and Dennis's energy right now? So many guys love your feedback on what it feels like in your body when a man is being a certain way. So these men right here that are stepping forward and saying they own their own shit, they have their own stars, dance on the staircase of 1, 2, 3, foreplay all day. How does that feel to you? No pressure with sex.
Well, energetically, it's so, it makes me feel very warm and like I can just relax in my whole being. And it was a real pleasure just to follow both Dennis and John as they were telling their story, because I felt very connected to what they were saying and very in trust of just who they are as people.
Beautiful. I want to come back to the trusting who they are as people. John and Dennis in this example have been doing work for years, right, guys? And so it's great modeling for other men to see you come on and speak about this. So I want to bounce a question to the two of them really fast. When I say what you're doing here, when you're becoming this man that you want to be, the version 2 of yourself, and you're trying these new things, you're trying nonverbal, looking at her across the table, and like Tim Wade this last Friday was on the show, he said connection happens before physicality, and just look at her eyebrows, look at her face, think about positive things about her, happiness from when you first met, right? That's the nonverbal. So why are we doing this as men if she's maybe not going to like it right now? So Dennis or John, if she doesn't like what I'm doing right now, what do I mean when I'm saying I'm doing this for information? I'm doing this for my own leadership. I'm doing this for my own awareness of my own body. What does that mean for the two of you? It looks like John unmuted himself. Go for it, John.
Yeah, I was just saying, because I started this work, I mean, when she absolutely hated me and wanted out. So, learning that stuff in the nonverbal communication and, trying to find positivity in it. She looked at me a lot of times like I was an idiot or said some pretty weird stuff. But just figuring out, kind of in my body what that felt like, when I was thinking positive of somebody, the better feelings that I have inside of me versus when I was thinking negative kind of feelings I was holding. And then learning to be nice and loving to somebody when they're not necessarily being nice and loving to you, holding them in a positive regard. A lot of that work had to come in the very beginning, because otherwise it was gonna be enemy for enemy instead of one person taking the leadership reins and walking the relationship the way it went versus just totally nuking it and ending up divorced.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. The positive regard's tough at the beginning, right? Tough to start. Go ahead, Dennis. Yeah.
Flip back to the screen. I got into John's answer and was really tuned in, and I lost my train of thought.
Yeah. So when I say we're doing this for our own leadership, not to win brownie points or get something, we're doing these things for information to see where we can lead the relationship and how she's responding. And we're doing this for our own self to understand our own physiological triggers.
I'm gonna be me. I'm to that point. I decided at some point after I was kicked to the curb 15 some years ago, I'm gonna be me. And while I'm not tied to the thermometer, I'm not unaware of her reactions. If there's something that truly triggers a negative reaction, I'm going to file that away because I don't want to inadvertently, being me, kill the vibe that I might be building or how the day is progressing. And like John said, that whole positive regard to start with changes everything. And I am not concerned if the flirty fun doesn't always land because of where she might be at that moment. That isn't, for me, that is more of, that information tells me I might need to stop and ask her what's going on. Is she okay? If it's a non-typical reaction. So that's how I kind of view it.
Yeah. So unattached to what she's exactly saying, you're that kind of man. You're a sexual man that's going to lead and dance in step two of the staircase. You're not forcing her to do anything. You're not giving her a hard time if she doesn't want to. That's totally fine. That's her prerogative, of course. You're just leading energetically. And so I want to, in our last few minutes here today, and we're going to develop this topic for the rest of this week as we're getting ready to shoot our free, more professional giveaway, a particular video that we're going to do on more sex and kisses and hugs and affection. Roger mentioned, I'm struggling with not caring as much about sex or outcomes and yet not seeming uninterested. So he doesn't want to seem uninterested. And how does he kind of not care, but yet not seem uninterested is a question that he has. And then he said his wife flashed her boobs at me while I was in the shower the other day and made a few flirtatious comments, or at least reacted favorably to mine. Holy shit. Okay. Yeah. I mean, how many men would fucking kill? Yeah, exactly. You don't have to show us your boobs, Roger. It's okay. So they don't like that in Egypt. You get thrown in jail for that stuff. Be careful. So yeah, that's great. Obviously, she's really enjoying that. And duh, right? Okay. But so your question is, how do I not care but still make advances? And that's what I mean of when she's overall not responding very well. You're looking at it like, I'm trying something new. I'm learning a new skill. Okay, so if I were to start riding a bike and I fall, that doesn't mean that I'm never going to be able to ride a bike. It's just I'm learning. So you're going to skin your knee, stub your toe, And to go with the metaphor, this show is like your helmet. Okay, this show is like your helmet or your training wheels. I guess it's both at the same time. Which is, don't try to jump to level 10 from level 1. You need your helmet when you crash. We're not trying to get you to crash here. Excuse me. Not trying to get you to crash. We're trying to get you to learn how to dance and be unattached, knowing that you're doing the right thing. So if you don't overextend, you're much less likely to get some gigantic offensive response from her. She might give you a hard time. She might not really like it much in that moment, but it's much easier to laugh something off when you're trying like a step 2 versus hoping to get this, home run penis and vagina step 10. Because that's a full on rejection and maybe you're overstepping yourself, Yeah. You're like trying to do a backflip off the fucking ramp when you really got training wheels on. So I love, and she's giving you good feedback, flashing the boobs. That's awesome. So Cynthia, I'd love for you to respond to Roger here about how can he come across as still interested, but not overextend himself or not go way far out on a limb where he's going to really be hurt or like care too much about the outcome.
So Jeff, I experience your interest when you look at me and you take a moment just to pause and look at me and smile. And to me, that makes me feel really excited inside. Like there's flowers blooming. I love that, and that's like the smallest little thing. It's a half second longer. It's also those like little things of, and I think we've talked before here about just touching a woman's hair or her shoulder, or just those little Those little things, it kind of goes back to what we're talking about with presence. Those She's paying attention to everything your body's doing, and so you, with your eyes, um, touching her with your hand, that means the world. That's like exponential effect versus trying to go up the staircase a little too fast. So
Oh, thank you. And I'd love for you to share about verbal or written. And something I had talked about on the show on Friday that we didn't get to was, what was something that I had wrote for you that you really felt was connecting? The guys want to. I'm not. This isn't just for me to like. Oh, I'm doing so good. Whatever. The guys want to see ways that are low risk of verbally connecting, and one of those is written form. So do you want to show, or do you want to read a couple of things from that I just pulled?
yeah, well, so Friday was my birthday, and so Jeff gave me this wonderful card with a
That's
unicorn.
the only thing I did, by the way. Just a card. That's it. That's all she gets. Card.
It's just a good card. And what he wrote in that was, characteristics he sees in me. And those were incredible. And I felt wonderful, like, oh, this more feminine part of me is something that he really is interested in. I don't have to be strong and on top of things. He appreciates my sensitivity and softness. But the thing that you wrote, Jeff, that really made me feel incredibly accepted, I felt your interest and your connection, was you had these phrases like, sometimes you're fast, sometimes you're slow, sometimes you're hard, sometimes you're soft, sometimes strong, sometimes delicate. And that made me experience how much you accept how I change throughout the day, how my moods change, how, yet some days I do feel strong and powerful, and other days I feel a lot more delicate and a lot more vulnerable. And the fact that you saw those, and that was something that interests you and you love, made me go, oh my gosh, I can really be myself. I can really trust this emotional space between us.
Well, I'm not sure what to say. I thank you so much. It's so phenomenal that you. This is interesting, guys. Right? It's we put ourselves out there to really push this conversation and make it edgy and vulnerable. And when she says I'm doing something well, I'm not even quite sure what to say. And so that's an interesting thing that I just realized I need to process. Right? And then, John, I'm curious what you meant in the chat here, and then we'll wrap it up for today. But you said, what does getting to level 10 mean? What is that holding for you when you get there? Are you saying if you're just focused on the destination, well, what is that really holding for you?
Yeah, like what's at the destination? Does that mean you're a good boy? Does that mean you're worthy? Like what is that space holding for you? What are you measuring that to? Um, because if you use sex as a way of, you know, nonverbal communication and building intimacy and becoming intimate, merging together, you're using, then it's no longer, you're not measuring it as a destination. Now it's just an act. So what does level ten mean to you? What is that special? What is it holding in that place for you? I had to question that a lot, kind of when I was going through it. Like what does sex mean to me? Does it mean I'm a good boy? Does it mean I'm a good husband, a worthy man, or is it something that we can share together that we both come from a common place too?
Oh, love it. Oh my gosh. Mic drop, John, at the end of the show. Beautiful. On that note, we'll call it there. What It's a rhetorical question in the moment for you guys to do as homework. So here's your homework. What does level 10 mean to me? Does that mean that I'm a good person? Does that mean I'm a good man? Does that validate me if I get sex? What does that mean for me? Does it matter if the sex is good or not? I mean, what does level 10 mean, right? That's something to bring to us tomorrow and ongoing this week. I'd love for those of you that are regulars to come on and share with us, what does level 10 mean to you physically, emotionally, spiritually, for you and for the relationship that you want to be a part of, this relationship you want to grow into that has more love, sex, kisses, and hugs. Cynthia, closing words for today, please.
I love that, John, that question. And on a spiritual plane, whatever you consider spirituality to be in your life, I fully believe that when we are connecting with people on a physical level, there's a great gift there. We receive wonderful things from them and we're giving them wonderful things, and sex and physical connection is a way to have some intention around that. Like, who do we want to be as a presence for ourselves, for this person, and how does it help us grow, get deeper, find more magic, move through blocks, and find new edges of courage and discovery. So I love that question.
Fantastic. Awesome. The C Note Show, guys, go to greatmenmovemountains.com/C-Notes if you want a question or to join our private Facebook forum. You can reach Cynthia and I personally there as well. And we will see you tomorrow at 11 a.m. Mountain, just like every day, Monday through Friday. Fantastic. Thanks, guys. See you tomorrow.
Thanks, guys.